The city back on his word. saw Shannon, who was amazed by the work and intelligent personality of the secretary of the company he asked for. Brown Core Ruth continued to pay attention to the woman. For Ross, dinners like that, which usually make him feel bored, became more enjoyable because Ruth was there.
I apologize to you. I don't know you can't drink alcohol.
It doesn't matter. Not everyone has to know about my illness, and I am so impressed with Miss Ruth, your secretary. I think I should have a secretary like her.
Maybe there won't be another secretary like Ruth. I even got it with great difficulty. She's like a diamond in a haystack.
Mr. Zane, you seem to be exaggerating. There are still many people who are more competent than me.
Ruth felt uncomfortable because she was being praised too highly. Ross smiled faintly as he looked at Ruth. His curiosity towards the girl increased, and he thought of several plans in his mind. The boring dinner was finally over. Everyone from Brown Core had left one by one. Ruth was waiting for a taxi.
Didn't your boss take you home?
Ruth was quite surprised because she thought that Ross had also left earlier.
Of course I would feel embarrassed if I had to be taken home by my superiors, sir. I would also be more comfortable going home alone.
It turns out you have principles. You make me even more interested. It's rare to find an independent girl like you these days, Miss Ruth.
Sir, you are too kind.
Instantly, Ruth's heart beat very fast. However, she tried to neutralize her thoughts and assumed that Ross was interested in her not because she was a woman, but because of her ability to work as a secretary.
Why aren't you home yet? I thought you would have gone home with the others first.
I came here earlier with a private driver. I told him to go home, and I was a little late in asking him to come pick me up.
The atmosphere felt awkward for Ruth because she had to be alone with Ross. Even though they were now in an open area, Ruth still felt like her heart was not safe because it was beating so fast. This Octi man, how can he be so sweet to her on their first meeting? Aren't Ox sufferers usually more likely to avoid physical contact with new people? Ruth doesn't know if what the man said was true, or if he just deliberately made up an excuse to be picked up a little late so he could chat with her.
Are you interested in being my secretary, Miss Ruth?
Suddenly, Ruth was shocked because she didn't expect that the man would offer her the position of secretary. Even though this man clearly knew that she was the secretary of Zane Brown, his partner company, she froze in place.
I will give you double the salary of your current boss. If you feel it's still not enough, I will give you 3 times the salary of your current salary.
I've had enough on my current salary.
Ruth felt that she should not be easily tempted by numbers because she still had to be a professional secretary, according to her place of work.
You shouldn't answer in a hurry. You can think about my offer carefully. Oh yeah, I will also provide facilities in the form of your own vehicle. Basically, you will get many benefits if you become my secretary.
However, all of Ross' efforts were in vain because Ruth's answer was still the same. This woman is very difficult to influence. Once no, always no.
There are lots of talented people in Los Angeles. I'm sure you can find a new secretary who is more suitable than me, sir.
Ross wouldn't force it, but maybe in the future, he would have to make sure that Ruth agreed to his offer. Not long after, the car that picked up Ross arrived. The driver got out and picked up the man, so he could get on immediately. However, Ross asked the driver to just wait in the car.
Do you want to come home with me? I think that would be better and save you taxi costs.
No need to bother, sir. I can go home myself. Besides, I've ordered a taxi online.
It seems tonight is a sad night for me because I have been rejected twice.
Don't talk like that. I'll take you to the car.
However, just as Ruth took a step, her foot accidentally tripped and then accidentally hit Ross's body. Luckily, the man quickly caught her body, so she didn't fall. At the same time, Ross smelled the very fresh aroma of rosemary from Ruth's body. He felt the aroma was very familiar, even though he didn't remember anything at all.
This scent.
Ross muttered in a very small voice, but Ruth could hear him. For a few moments, the two were silent, looking into each other's eyes.
Are you okay?
Okay.
Ruth moved away from Ross and kept safe distance from him. Ruth tried to take her eyes off Ross and finally saw that the online taxi she had ordered had arrived. She took the opportunity to leave. After that incident, Ross felt like he wasn't sleeping well. He even woke up in the middle of the night. He really felt a little stressed because Ruth always appeared in his mind. He also called Henry, who was his main doctor.
Hello, are you asleep?
I haven't slept.
Thank goodness. That means I'm not bothering you.
What's wrong with you calling me at night? Is there a problem?
Actually, yes. I even just woke up from a very surprising dream. I seem to remember several pieces of events from the past.
Isn't that great? Maybe you can get all your memories intact?
Yes, I know this is good, but I also dreamed of a woman I just met today. I don't know why she appeared in my dream. I'm very confused now.
It could be that woman who stimulated the nerves in your brain so that you could remember fragments of past events.
Anatoe, could that be?
That's a pretty big possibility. Now you better rest. Don't worry too much about this.
Ross wondered why he felt that Ruth was familiar to him. Is it possible that this woman has something to do with his past that he doesn't remember at all? After After quite long negotiations, Zane and all the company officials finally agreed to Ross's offer. Indeed, at first, Zane was also very happy to accept the merger.
Thank you for trusting me. I promise you will get big benefits, and you definitely won't regret agreeing.
The meeting ended with the agreement that Ross wanted. Of course, he was very satisfied because his plan was successful and went smoothly.
Congratulations, sir. You are amazing.
All of this is also thanks to your hard work.
Shall we go home straight away, sir?
Wait a moment. I have to do something first.
Ross looked back and saw Ruth walking with Zane. He smiled when he saw the woman. It seems he has a second plan after successfully acquiring Brown Core.
Why aren't you home yet?
I'm waiting for someone.
Ross is looking at Ruth. Ross's gaze made Ruth uncomfortable. Ruth still had to act professionally, even though she was anxious.
Who are you waiting for?
Zane's forehead furrowed slightly because he felt confused and curious.
Of course, Miss Ruth. She is the secretary of Brown Corp, and now Earl Corp has officially acquired it. Doesn't she automatically become my secretary?
Zane actually didn't agree with what Ross said, but he couldn't do anything else. This time, he couldn't refute the man's words and had to surrender to the situation.
Ah, that's true.
Then I would like to be escorted by Miss Ruth. Can I do that?
Ross asked while looking at Zane.
Of course you can. It's not a big deal at all.
Zane's answer made Ross very satisfied.
Miss Ruth, you have heard what Mr. Zane said, right?
Ross turned his eyes toward Ruth.
So isn't it a problem if, from now on, I ask you to do something that is still related to the company?
He also asked Ruth to take him to the parking lot. Ruth also had no choice but to obey his orders. Apparently, this incident made Zane frustrated. He felt that everything he owned had been taken by Ross, even though it was subtle. Currently, Ruth is walking with James behind Ross. If James wasn't there, she might have felt more awkward. She was very grateful for that. Suddenly, Ross stopped his footsteps, surprising Ruth and James. Ruth screamed when her forehead accidentally hit Ross's back, even more so when Ross turned around to face them.
There's something I want to ask you, Miss Ruth.
What is that, sir?
Ruth was worried that Ross would ask her strange things.
I'm just curious. How can you know my habits and preferences so well? Have we met before and known each other before?
Ross looked at Ruth carefully and hoped to get an answer that would calm his heart.
Why do you ask like that?
Ruth's heart was racing very fast. She believed that sooner or later Ross would recognize her. However, she didn't mean to tell everything she knew in the past about her and that man.
I find this very strange.
Ross replied without taking his eyes off Ruth.
How is that possible, sir? You and I have never met and have never known each other before. Yesterday at the airport was the first time we met. The fact that I know your habits and preferences is probably just a coincidence.
Ross sighed softly as he nodded his head. Actually, he wasn't really sure about Ruth's answer, because that woman always appeared in his mind and made him remember pieces of memories from the past. However, he didn't want to ask any further.
Okay, if we've never met or known each other before, that doesn't matter to me.
Yes, sir.
Yes, even so. I still like you because you are very competent. I decided to appoint you as my main secretary. Of course, I don't want to hear rejection from you again because you now automatically work at my company.
Indeed, this time Ruth couldn't refuse anymore. She is now truly working under the cool leadership of Ross Shannon. The new sure nothing was dirty or messy.
It done. I am very talented when it comes to cleaning and organizing the house. Wow, I feel proud of myself.
Ruth smiled.
I'm very tired. I'll rest for a while here.
Ruth sat down on the living room sofa. However, all this work certainly made Ruth exhausted. She sat on the sofa, unconsciously closed her eyes, and fell asleep there soundly. Ross smiled with satisfaction when he saw that his new house looked neat and clean. It turns out he wasn't wrong in asking Ruth to organize his house. The woman really knew his tastes, so he became even more curious and wanted to know more about Ruth.
This house looks more alive after she touched it.
Ross was looking at every corner of the house.
The longer I go, the more I feel like we've known each other for a long time.
Ross sat on the sofa, muttered.
Yes, even though I can't remember anything, there was still something strange about the way she treated me.
The man was still guessing about Ruth, whom he had only met a few days ago.
I don't think that's something I need to think too much about. The most important thing is that she can do her job well.
Ross was satisfied with Ruth's work on his house. For ox sufferers like him, it seems like it might be uncomfortable if there is a furniture arrangement that doesn't suit his wishes even a little. But now he feels fine, thanks to Ruth.
I think she is talented in many areas. I think I plan to give her additional work. Wouldn't it be a shame not to use her skills well?
The smile on Ross's face grew. He took his cell phone from his trouser pocket and called Ruth. It didn't take long for him to wait because his secretary immediately answered the phone.
Hello, sir. How may I help you?
What are you doing?
I just arrived at the apartment, sir.
Apparently you haven't been out of my house for a long time.
Ruth seemed to frown and then sigh softly. Right now, she really wanted to take a shower and rest, but Ross called her instead.
Yes, that's why I just arrived, sir. What's actually going on, sir?
Ross knew that Ruth's voice sounded tired, but he didn't care because he wanted to get his point across right now. He is the type of person who doesn't like to put things off. Very selfish.
I just want to thank you because your performance was very satisfactory. I also want to say that starting tomorrow morning, you will be responsible for my food and shelter.
Ruth's eyes widened completely because she couldn't believe what she had just heard. She is the company secretary, but why does she have to act like a household assistant?
But, sir, I don't...
Ruth took a deep breath because before she could refuse Ross's orders, the man had already hung up the phone.
Shit, you crazy boss.
She was really frustrated now, and she ruffled her hair.
Why is he doing whatever he wants to me? I really can't understand him. He is really a psychopath.
In her heart, Ruth cursed Ross as a boss who liked to act arbitrarily. She was even forced to accept all of Ross's treatment because she had no power.
Now I've lost interest in pampering myself because of that damn Ross Shannon.
Ruth was rolling around on her bed.
What an annoying guy.
The next morning, as requested by Ross, Ruth comes to Ross's new house. Ruth even smiled brightly, as if she didn't feel annoyed, even though she was treated like a household assistant.
Come on, Ruth, cheer up. You can't lose. Show me that you can make crazy Ross Shannon shut up.
You came early in the morning. Did you have time to have breakfast?
Of course Ruth didn't have breakfast. She even didn't have time for a bath.
What's wrong? Why are you silent and smiling like that?
Ross was surprised because Ruth's attitude was a little strange.
It's nothing, sir. I didn't have time for breakfast earlier.
You can also have breakfast with me later. I have to shower first.
Ross walked away, leaving Ruth behind.
Yes, sir.
Ruth forced a smile. One of her hands punched Rose's shadow. To be honest, Ruth was a little annoyed by this situation, but she had to continue to look happy.
Fighting. Ruth, you can do it.
Ruth walked into the kitchen. She was very amazed when she saw the contents of Ross's refrigerator and kitchen cupboards, which were neatly arranged and full of food. It looks like she can cook well this morning.
He only lives alone, but the contents of his refrigerator and kitchen cupboard are very large. Can he finish all this quickly?
She then shook her head and didn't want to think about complicated things anymore. Finally, Ruth decided to just cook pancakes for breakfast.
I hope he likes it.
Ruth smiled as she looked at the stack of pancakes that she had decorated with whipped cream, fresh strawberries, and maple syrup. She also prepared orange juice as a drink.
Have you finished cooking?
Ross suddenly appeared in the kitchen. For a moment, Ruth was stunned to see Ross with half-wet hair. The man also looked very casual because he only wore a t-shirt and black training pants.
Why are you surprised to see me? After breakfast, please prepare the clothes I have to wear today.
Yes, sir.
The two of them finally ate breakfast together. Ross was very satisfied with the service provided by Ruth.
Wow, you are really a secretary who knows your boss's wishes.
Ross really wanted to enjoy sweet food, and Ruth fulfilled his expectations. After eating, Ruth immediately rushed to Ross's closed walk-in. She was stunned because the room really looked luxurious. She even felt like she was visiting a branded goods boutique.
He's really a conglomerate. Why would he ask me to choose clothes for him? Am I his wife?
However, suddenly, both of her cheeks turned red. Ruth immediately patted her cheek tightly while shaking her head.
You shouldn't think of such ridiculous things, Ruth.
Not wanting her strange thoughts to continue to creep in, Ruth decided to immediately choose clothes for Ross. Starting from shirts, suits, ties, belts, watches, socks, and shoes, she must be prepared perfectly. After finishing choosing, she immediately took everything to Ross's room. While waiting for Ross to change clothes, Ruth sat on the sofa in the living room, playing with her cell phone. Actually, she was worried because she was afraid that Ross would protest her choice.
How do I look today?
Ruth was really amazed because Ross looked very handsome. She thought, how could God create a man as perfect as Ross?
You are very handsome, sir.
Your choice is very good. I have become more confident.
Thank you, sir.
Oh yeah, what's my schedule for today?
Ruth quickly took her iPad and checked the schedule, then explained everything to Ross. She is indeed a very reliable secretary because she is versatile and competent. Ross was very satisfied with Ruth's performance. According to him, the service of his new secretary was very thorough and according to his taste. He believed that there were not many people in this world who could have abilities comparable to Ruth's.
Okay, let's go to the company now. Maybe my driver is waiting downstairs.
Currently, Ruth and Ross are together in the car. Since earlier, Ruth had been stealing glances at her boss, who was sitting to her right.
What has happened?
Ruth took a deep breath and then took out a letter from her bag. Then she gave the letter to Ross.
What's this?
Ross's forehead furrowed deeply.
This is my resignation letter, sir. I beg you to accept it.
that Miss Ivy will soon be engaged to Mr. Ross. Most likely her coming here was to announce their engagement.
Is it true? It's no surprise that Mr. Ross chose Miss Ivy. She is so beautiful, and her aura exudes the aura of a celebrity. Miss Ivy is the real form of an angel in heaven. The two of them are a perfect couple.
Everyone in the room was amazed at Ross and Ivy's relationship. However, not Ruth, who was a little surprised when she heard the news. Her face looked sad.
Why do I feel tightness in my chest? I shouldn't be like this. This is very annoying.
Ruth grumbled to herself.
I should be happy because that bastard found someone and is getting engaged to a very beautiful girl.
She closed her eyes for a moment while holding her chest to neutralize her feelings. After feeling better, Ruth met Ross in his office. Apart from providing documents, she also submitted her resignation again.
Are you sure about this? It's barely been a month since you became my main secretary, but why do you want to resign?
My decision has been made, sir. I don't think I'm suitable to work here.
Not suitable. Do you want to play with me?
Ross's face looked red with anger.
I'm not messing with you, sir. Please approve my resignation letter.
Currently, I suffer from mild OCD. It's not easy for me to feel comfortable with the people or circumstances around me. The doctor recommended that I take regular medication every month. Did you know that this disease really interferes with all my activities? However, lately I don't think I feel like I have this disease. And it's all thanks to you, who did all your work well and according to my taste.
Actually, he didn't want to tell Ruth about his illness, but he had no other choice now. Ross's statement made Ruth hesitate. Even though the man did not say clearly that she played an important role in curing his illness, she understood the implied meaning of Ross's words. It really disturbed her mind. The atmosphere in Earl Corps, Secretary's room was very quiet. Everyone seems to be busy doing their respective tasks. However, Tina seemed engrossed in watching her favorite band. She deliberately used Bluetooth earphones so that other people couldn't hear her music.
Today is very beautiful. So let's make the best use of the time to look at the handsome ones and please ourselves.
Tina was very happy to find out that their boss was not in the office. Therefore, she took advantage of the opportunity to entertain herself in between her busy activities.
They are very handsome.
Tina muttered in a very small voice.
If I were the girlfriend of one of them, it would be amazing.
She couldn't even hide her happy facial expression. Tina is a groupie who really likes rock band music. While she was having fun, suddenly James called her. She knew that if the man called, it must be something important. Even though she was half-hearted about picking up the phone, she still had to do it.
Hello, James. What's up?
Please look for documents in a green folder on my desk. If there aren't any, you can check in my desk drawer.
Okay, what should I do with the documents?
You just take the documents to my place now. I'm at hospital.
Tina sighed softly because her time to enjoy her favorite band had to stop. Besides, she really had to go to the hospital now, even though she was reluctant. This is part of her job, and she is paid for it.
Okay, I'll come right away with the documents.
A moment after that, James hung up the phone. The journey from the company takes about half an hour. Tina deliberately ordered a taxi online so that she could arrive quickly, even though the cost was more expensive. If he uses a bus or train, it will definitely be a hassle because she is carrying important documents.
I hate hospitals the most.
Tina grumbled as she got out of the taxi. Now she was in front of the large hospital building.
The smell of medicine and equipment in there really bothers me.
For Tina, the hospital is the place she avoids the most because she is afraid of needles and harsh doctors.
If this wasn't part of my job, then I wouldn't want to come here,
she said, because she had a bad experience as a child. Even if she is sick, she is reluctant to go to the doctor or hospital. She prefers to buy medicine directly at the pharmacy.
Okay, I will immediately leave this place after delivering the documents to James.
Tina encouraged herself while clenching her right fist tightly. She started walking into the lobby of the hospital and looking for James. Previously, she asked where the room was, which James told the receptionist so she wouldn't get lost. The hospital atmosphere is never quiet. Tina glanced at the emergency room, which was not far from where she was now. The ER was very busy, and there were lots of patients.
Luckily, I don't have to go there.
Tina breathed a sigh of relief as she put her hand to her chest. Suddenly, the cell phone in her handbag rang. After checking, it turns out she got a call from James. The man asks Tina to come soon. Because of James's call, Tina tried to run. However, because she wasn't really focused on the road, she accidentally hit someone. As a result, the document she was holding fell. The man who collided with her immediately helped her pick up all her things on the floor.
Are you okay, miss?
Apparently, the person who was hit by Tina was Henry. Tina widened her eyes because the young doctor's face was so handsome. Henry's attitude was also very gentle and caring, which made her melt a little.
I'm okay.
This is yours.
However, after that, he kept his distance because he had a phobia of women. Henry handed the fallen documents to Tina.
Thank you.
Tina was admiring the handsome of Henry's face. After that, Henry immediately left Tina because he still had some business to do. Meanwhile, Tina was still frozen in place while continuing to stare at Henry, who was walking away.
I just found out that there is such a handsome and gentle doctory. In a place like this, is it possible that my trauma will disappear from now on?
Tina muttered. She didn't realize that both of her cheeks were turning red. Apparently, Henry was in a hurry to meet Ross because the CT scan results of the man's brain had already come out. Of course, as a doctor, he is responsible for providing an explanation of the results.
How? Is there a problem in my brain? There must be a big change, right?
The CT scan results of your brain are exactly the same as 5 years ago. Nothing has changed at all. You can compare the two. You definitely can't see the difference.
Henry was showing 2 images of the CT results carried out by Ross.
Are you sure? If it was the same as 5 years ago, why do I now often feel headaches, restlessness, and anger?
Of course, Ross didn't immediately believe it, even though he had seen the results of the 2 CT scans of his head.
Don't you want to examine me further? Who knows, you might find something wrong in my brain.
Henry looked at Ross sarcastically.
The symptoms you're experiencing are probably due to external stimulation. This could not have happened if there was no cause. You can start observing yourself by observing and writing down every change you feel, starting from when it occurred and what caused it.
The doctor continued. Ross was silent for a moment after hearing Henry's explanation. He did feel changes in himself since Ruth appeared in his life.
Actually, a lot of things have happened recently. Do you remember that I met the woman I told you about some time ago? Since then, I've started to remember pieces and memories of my past.
Yes, I remember that. How did you meet her?
I met her at the airport. The woman picked me up. She was the secretary of Brown Crop, the company I just acquired recently.
That's good.
Henry nodding his head. Ross's headache problem seemed to be known, and he just needed to dig deeper into Ross's next story.
Continue. I want to hear more of your story so I can conclude.
You see, when I met her, there was a familiar feeling. I felt this woman was very familiar and close. However, I feel a huge headache when I remember every memory I have ever had. The more I try to remember, the more painful it feels.
Have you seen her often since her first meeting?
Of course, because now she is my secretary.
That seems like a good thing. If she is your secretary, chances are you can always meet her.
What do you mean? What's good if I keep feeling sick?
Ross's forehead furrowed deeply because he still didn't understand Henry's words. However, the young doctor explained what he meant again so that he understood it.
I suggest you have more contact with that woman to help recover your memory more quickly.
For a moment, Ross was silent. He became concerned because Ruth repeatedly asked him to resign from her secretary position. If that happened, then he couldn't follow Henry's advice. Maybe now Ross has to rack his brain so that the woman doesn't keep asking him to stop. As he thought about Ruth, he felt his head react again.
Do I have to feel this headache all the time when I'm close to her or thinking about her?
Yes, you have to go through that. Don't you want to immediately remember all your past memories?
Ross just nodded slowly. He was also bored of being someone who didn't know anything. He really has to know everything that has happened in his life before. Tina's face lit up brightly when the girl returned to the company. After meeting Henry at the hospital, she couldn't forget the man's handsome face and gentle behavior.
Good afternoon, all.
Tina waved at her colleagues, who were still busy doing their respective tasks.
It seems like something good has happened to you,
said one of the female employees who worked in the same office as Tina.
You're very good at judging.
Tina smiling brightly and snapping her fingers.
You are the best.
After meeting Henry, Tina decided to become a fan of the handsome doctor. Even though she only knew that Henry was a doctor at the hospital, it didn't matter to her as long as the man was handsome. She would like him.
Next time, I have to ask what his name is. Then if possible, his cell phone number too. That doctor is really so handsome. I can't forget him even though it's the first time I've seen him.
If later or tomorrow she was asked to go to the hospital again, she wouldn't refuse and would go straight away without hesitation. At the Earl Corps real estate sales office, Zane and Ruth were talking.
As a woman, you should invest yourself well and leave the real estate to the men.
What does mean, sir? Can't a woman work?
Ruth asked with serious face.
That's not what I meant. Women can still work, but they must still think more about their own happiness than their work. I'm just joking. Don't take it too personally.
Okay, I didn't understand your joke. So, is there anything you want to tell me?
Zane looked around. Apparently, the area around where he and Ruth were chatting was quiet, and there were no people.
As I said on the phone earlier, I do have important information for you.
What kind of information is that, sir?
Ruth is frowning.
I'm only going to say it once, so you have to listen carefully to understand it.
Ruth's facial expression suddenly turned serious.
I heard from insiders that Earl Corps will soon launch housing for employee welfare. This is a good opportunity for you. Okay, that's all I want to tell you, Ruth. It looks like I have to leave because I have other activities to do after this.
Zane said goodbye with a smile.
So he contacted me and asked me to meet him just because he wanted to say this.
Ruth sighed softly because she had rushed to meet Zane just to hear that information. This was indeed encouraging information for Earl Corps employees, but she was already planning to resign. The next day, Ruth was forced to go to work because Ross had not approved her resignation request. This morning, she came straight to the office and didn't go to Ross's house like last time.
I am a secretary, not a household assistant. I should have come straight to the office.
Ruth said to herself before walking into her office.
Besides, he's not a baby who needs help from other people just because of trivial matters. From today on, I won't want him to ask me to do housework and help prepare all his needs. Just like a baby sister.
Ruth sneered at her annoying boss.
Oh.
However, the next second, Ruth screamed loudly. She was so surprised when she saw Ross standing in her room. The man even looked at her so sharply as if his eyeballs were about to pop out of his eyelids.
Can I help you, sir? Why are you in my office so early in the morning?
Ruth becomes very nervous.
I'm just making sure you check all these documents.
Ross answered as he showed 3 piles of documents piled high on Ruth's desk. The unusual pile of documents amazed Ruth. She was absolutely sure that Ross would want to work on her.
Okay, sir. I'll check later.
Ruth forces a smile.
Not later, but now. In 3 hours, you have to provide a recap of all the documents.
Ross ordered as he walked towards the exit. He did this because he hated Ruth's weekend work strike.
But, sir,
Ross had already left and closed the door tightly. That left Ruth holding back her anger because she was annoyed.
Again, that psychopath asked me to do something beyond reason? Why is he so annoying?
Ruth growled as she stomped her feet on the floor.
I can't lose. I have to show that man that I'm not a woman who is easily bullied.
Ruth said to herself.
I hate all of this.
Ruth ruffled her hair, then sat in her work chair and began looking at the pile of documents in front of her. It seemed like Ruth really didn't have any other choice. She immediately read the documents and made a recap to submit to Ross. 3 hours later, according to the deadline given, Ruth came to Ross's room to give him the results of her work. Apparently, she was able to solve the problem on time.
This is a recap of the documents you provided earlier. I have tried my best with the short time you gave me.
Ruth gave the results of her work to Ross. Ross took what Ruth gave him roughly. His face wasn't even friendly at all.
What exactly are you doing?
Ross shouted as he slammed the paper he was holding onto the floor, even though he had just read the first page.
Why do this to me?
Ruth, who had been trying to be patient, became emotional. Her anger at Ross seemed unstoppable.
You seem to have gone too far. You should just agree to my resignation request. You are truly an asshole. If you really hate me, why don't you just fire me so I don't have to do a lot of strange requests from you, huh?
She was so annoyed. that she deliberately pulled the pearl necklace she was wearing until it fell off her neck and the pearls scattered on the floor. Suddenly, Ross immediately squatted down to pick up the pearls on the floor.
Why are you dirtying my room with scattered pearls from your necklace? You are truly extraordinary.
Ross returned the pearls he had just picked up to Ruth. For a moment, Ruth was stunned because she saw that Ross was really angry with her. However, she decided to beat the drums of war on her boss and immediately left the room. Meanwhile, Ross appeared to be hitting his desk to vent his anger. The man also didn't want to lose. He also fought a cold war with Ruth.
I don't want to hear complaints or objections from all of you. Complete all the work I ask for today. If you don't want me to fire you.
Ross emphasized this before leaving the secretary's room. The secretaries at Earl Corps had to work overtime until the evening. It was all because Ross was in a bad mood, so everyone was affected. Ross gave a lot of tasks to the people who worked in the secretary's office.
Can you give this to Mr. Ross? I already took care of his vehicle tax and got a new car number plate,
said Tina as she handed Ruth the number plate and several of Ross's tax documents.
Okay, I'll give it to him later.
Thank you, Ruth. I have to get back to work. Today, Mr. Ross seems to be in a bad mood, so there's a lot to do. You're enthusiastic too. Mr. Ross is sometimes a little crazy when he's upset.
Tina returned to her desk. Ruth felt bad for Tina and the others because they had to work overtime because of it. Her gaze shifted to the number plate on Ross's car. Her eyes narrowed slightly when she saw that. Seeing these numbers, Ruth smiled faintly. She felt that this was a really interesting coincidence. After that, Ruth decided to go back to work so that it would be finished quickly. She also plans to treat her co-workers to a meal at a sushi restaurant after work. Maybe that was the only thing she could do to make up for her guilt for making everyone overwork tonight.